Drink beer. Think beer. You're listening to Brew Bloods.
Episode 116 of Brew Bloods, our very special Oktoberfest episode.
I love Oktoberfest.
Who doesn't like Oktoberfest? We're right on the cusp of actual October, of the month of October.
I'm sure somebody out there doesn't like it, but, you know.
That's true.
There's crazy people out there all over.
There's always downers, Debbie Downers out there. Or Debbie's Downers? Debbie's Downer?
It's a whole gang of Debbie's Downers.
Debbie's Downers. Debbie's Downsters that hate Oktoberfest. There's a whole bunch of them.
Downsters, yeah.
Downsters, yes. Debbie's Downsters. Yes, there's always a few Debbie's Downsters out there that hate anything, but I would assume 99% of the world enjoys Oktoberfest. Who doesn't enjoy a 2-week celebration focusing on beer?
I don't know. What if you exclusively drink wine?
Screw those people. Don't exist. Screw them.
Yeah, that's true.
No such thing as sommeliers.
We at least don't care about them.
No, nobody cares about them. We're here to talk beer. We're here to drink beer. We're here to think beer. We're here to talk beer. We're here to talk about Oktoberfest, which is also celebrating beer. So this is our very special Oktoberfest episode for 2017. In past years, we've done Oktoberfest beers. We've done face-offs with Oktoberfest beers.
Yeah, we've had them punch each other in the taints. And today we're going a different route.
That's right. But this year, we decided to have a very special interview, and this is with Dennis Wehrmann, the owner and brewmaster of Franconia Brewing, and they are one of the
grandfathers of craft beer in the DFW area.
Yeah, and absolutely, they were, I think, the second craft brewery in the area, and they were as we mentioned in the interview, they are the very first craft brewery that you and I ever visited.
Yeah, they were the first one that was on this side of the Metroplex. So if you haven't been to the DFW area, going from where they are in McKinney all the way to where RAR, the very first craft brewery was, or is, in Fort Worth, it's quite a little haul. So we decided to go to the one that was a lot closer.
I would say RAR is probably, hour and a half away?
Yeah, absolutely.
From McKinney? Yeah, and I still have not been there to this day.
Yeah, me neither.
It's that far away.
It is.
And people don't understand. I don't know if everybody understands, and had just what a beating it is, and that's driving in a car with constant flow traffic. That's not subways where you're making multiple stops. It's just it's a straight hour and a half drive. So
yeah, since DFW decides to keep bringing in more and more people, then it makes it harder and harder to get to that side of town.
Yep. So basically, we're never going to make it out of Central Dallas in the near future.
Right.
We shan't make it above 635, and we shan't make it west of the tollway.
Yeah, very limited range that we're going to have.
Very limited range.
We don't go south of Northwest Highway either, so it's a really small area if you know DFW.
Yeah, that's enough infrastructure talk, though. We're here to talk about Oktoberfest and Dennis, not infrastructure.
Let's talk more about Lake Highlands and the roads that are held within it.
Exactly. So Franconia, they're probably their first big beer, as far as I know, that really made a splash in the area was their Hefeweizen. And it was one of not my first craft beer, but it was definitely one of my first craft beers. Yeah,
their Dunkel and their wheat were pretty marquee as well.
I'm sorry. Wheat beer, not the Hefeweizen, yes.
Yeah. Their Dunkel was pretty marquee pretty early, too.
Yeah, I just seem to remember the wheat making a big splash back in the day. Maybe it was just a big splash in my palate, but I remember making a big splash because it was, kind of an alternative to Blue Moon in the area. And
yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like it was an alternative to Blue Moon, and they made a splash off that, at least in my mind. And
I would say a better alternative for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So here's Dennis Wehrmann, the owner and brewmaster of Franconia Brewing, after this.
Hey guys, Josh here, just to let you know, to remind you, to get the word out, to put it in your brain, that no matter when you're listening to this podcast, Thursday is right around the corner. What's so significant about Thursday? Well, at Thursday at noon, you get to tune in and listen live to Liquid Lunch. Join myself and Catherine Contreras from She's Crafty Podcast as we join forces to bring you Texas's live midday craft beer show. It's the only one like it out there in the entire world. We're live. We take your calls at 713-678-0070. We have on the best guests in the craft beer world from the state of Texas and beyond. and it's just a fun time. You'll hear what you eating, what you drinking. We'll get the latest in news and craft beer goings-ons, promotions of all the latest happenings, and you can be a part of the show with us each and every Thursday at noon. LiquidLunchShow.com is where we're located. Also on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, streaming live video and audio. Your choice. Come join the party. Kick off the weekend Thursday at noon. LiquidLunchShow.com. That's Liquid Lunch. We'll see you there.
Hooray for beer!
So today we're at Franconia Brewing in McKinney, Texas. It's the very first craft brewery that Dustin and I ever went to, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Not our
First brewery
beer.
tour I ever went to.
First brewery tour we ever went to.
And not just one time. I went here probably a dozen times back when I lived here.
And we're here with Dennis, the founder and brewmaster of Franconia. He's got a long brewing history in his family. So for probably, I guess a lot of people don't know, you've got quite the brewing legacy in your family. Going back to 1800s Germany. So can you walk people through your history?
Yeah, absolutely. It started with my great-great-grandfather in 1800. He opened the family's first brewery in an area called Franken, translated Franconia, so that's where the name is coming from. Franconia is also the biggest beer region worldwide. You know, with all the craft beer boom going on in the United States, the biggest beer region is still held in Germany, in the Franconian region.
Oh, wow.
Which, just giving you a comparison, 40,000 square miles, 12 million people, and 380 breweries.
Wow.
So considering that we have about maybe 6 or 7 million people within the Metroplex, we got a long way to go.
Yeah, we keep wondering. I mean, if they're how close, just because of tap space here in the on the market. Like, how close are we to capacity just based on tap space alone? Because people are fighting, just for tap.
Yeah,
taps here.
it definitely got very competitive. There's no doubt about it. And from the just from the area where I'm from, if you look at it. There is for sure more potential. I think what really is going to hurt the market is just the speed it is progressing. It just happens too fast because there's not enough time for every brand and brewery to really establish their clientele. So,
right.
But I mean, we will see. We're in it, and everybody is trying their best. So, thanks to guys like you,
Yeah.
it's every bit helps. So
I guess Germany had a little bit more of a organic speed to it when we were in
it
their
took
beer
hundreds
industry.
of years.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Just a few hundred years of tradition.
It took hundreds of years. But back to the original question. So it started with my great-great-grandfather, Franconian area. He opened his first brewery there, and it was mostly on my mom's side. So my dad likes to drink beer, but he doesn't really like to make it. So if that makes any sense.
Yes.
So most of my mom's brothers and are still involved in the beer business and things like that. So yeah, and I was born pretty much in the brewery. Had my first experience working in the brewery with age 6, and did my first batch of beer with age 12. And yeah, that was also the age when I officially had my started drinking beer. So there might have been some unofficial moments before that.
Well, sure. So did you ever have any dreams of being anything other than in making beer?
Yes, it's a funny story. Not a lot of people know that. Well, that's probably going to change now. I had a second passion. I was actually in race cars.
Okay.
So was a race car driver. Made it pretty up there too. Came to the point I had to make a decision which path I want to go. Driving and alcohol doesn't really fit together, so
Sure, makes sense.
But you're also pretty tall, so most race car drivers are like really tiny guys. Like how did that work?
If you look at pictures from me from about 15 years ago, you would not recognize me.
Oh, okay.
So there was actually there's a picture on our Facebook side from just a few weeks back where we did a event. Can I advertise some?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We did an event out at the Bearded Monk in Denton. Hello to the guys. And it was a little bit about the history and whatever. And we pulled an old picture out for me in the brewery back in Germany. And yeah, I was much slimmer as I am today. So I did fit in.
No, I'm just like just height alone. Like you're way taller than most race car drivers.
They're building around you.
Well, fair enough.
They're building around you.
So what did your dad do since he wasn't into beer?
Believe it or not, my dad actually worked for law enforcement, so he was a special agent with the state.
So you never wanted to be in law enforcement, huh? Just beer driving.
That's,
I don't blame you.
No.
I don't either.
That were some serious conversations between me and my dad. So
yeah. Was there family pressure since you had such a strong legacy of making beer in your family? Was there family pressure to continue that tradition and that legacy?
No, not really. I mean, we have a few family members that did not went that route, and the last family-owned brewery actually was sold in 2003, just a few months before I moved here. And it was owned by my uncle, and the kids pretty much just got out of it after unfortunately he passed. But it's it's just how life goes. But no, I never feel pressure. I just literally grew up with it, and I never did anything else. I couldn't see myself sitting behind a desk or in a cubicle all day, and I like to work with products and do something with my hands, which that doesn't happen that much either anymore.
Sure.
Running the brewery is, you have your hands in everything a little bit.
Everything all the time.
So I'm not as much involved in the back anymore as I sometimes wish when I wake up in the morning. Oh man, I would like to brew a batch of beer, but
sure.
So.
Well, speaking of the 2003 move to the U.S., what made you move to the U.S. instead of actually staying in Germany and maybe pursuing the same passion there?
Man, that's a really short answer. It's all about the women's, right?
Sure, yeah.
And second, the beer.
Yeah.
No, as you can imagine, I had a pretty good position back in Germany within the brewing business, and worked a lot. And my wife totally disagreed with the working hours I put in, and it came a little bit to a rough moment, and we decided, it's all good. Let's just try something else. It was pretty clear that I will stay in the beer business, but maybe somewhere where it's a little bit more relaxed, if that makes any sense. So
sure,
ended up here. It for sure helped that my wife is half German, half American. So traveled around a few times, and then found some good spots, and now owning Franconia, I'm probably working more as I did before back in Germany, but
let's say the pressure is ramped up a bit now.
Pressure ramped up a little bit, but it's all right. So,
but you're the king, so you can. I mean, it's your business to do what you want, so that helps. I guess
that's true.
A little more motivation.
Yes and no. I mean, it's the business we're in, and I think people can speak for that as well. It's definitely a customer driven business. So there's sure, I'm my own boss, but we still have to, or we're leading by what the customers want. So.
Yeah,
makes sense. And why Texas in particular,
or why McKinney even, and not Dallas proper?
Yeah.
The reason why we ended up in Texas, that was actually completely unplanned. So you can imagine, I moved here 2003, so we started looking probably early 2002, and we took a few trips through the states, mostly up north, because that's where beer was more forward as it was here. I mean, there wasn't literally anything going on down here. So we took a few trips up north and visited some breweries, and had quite some interesting chop offers up there as well. And at the end of our second trip, we came down here to Texas, to Dallas, to visit my wife's grandparents, which I have never met before. And so they lived here in McKinney, and we just spent literally a weekend, long weekend, Thursday, Friday, and we left on Sunday night. So when we got here, we drove down to Dallas just to do some sightseeing in Dallas, and on the way out, we had some lunch at a brew pub down in Dallas, which let's leave the name just out at this point, but it was very interesting. They were expanding, and we just had lunch there, and the brewer walked by, and we talked about it, and literally within 24 hours, they made me a chop offer.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
Without having the intention of really looking anything up in Texas. So we were pretty much on the way back to Germany, but that's where we ended up, and Yeah, McKinney, I mean, when we opened up 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, planning and zoning was really hard. When we just talked about petty colors, and, I mean, I bring Deep Ellum up to you. They know what they had to go through to get something established in Dallas. So, well, we have been 5 years before even that was possible.
Yeah,
so,
it was just you and Roar right around the same time.
Yeah, it was us and Roar. Roar, I think, was 2 years before us. And, there was just, it was really hard to get there. For us, or from the area I'm coming from, the Franconian area, and like we said, so many breweries it's really dense. I'm more on the really local community.
Sure.
So looking at Dallas at 2 million people plus city, it was, I don't know, it just felt more like it out here.
Yeah.
And then we self-distributed for the first 6 years, which was important for us too, to have access really quick to the different spots within the Metroplex. So McKinney just was the spot to be at that point, and it worked out for us.
Probably helped a lot having all these nice local businesses over there in the square and that kind of thing. I remember going.
I tell you what, as much love we get from McKinney, really, really well appreciated, and I can highly speak of every customer we have. It took us quite a long time to really get a foot into McKinney. We definitely had a bigger impact in Dallas when we opened up as we had here in McKinney.
Oh, wow.
Which throughout the years changed. I wish the city would think a little bit different or would step in a little bit different, but all the accounts we have in McKinney now, it's just beautiful, literally exactly what we were looking for. So that's definitely great.
So what challenges did you face? Roar, obviously, I guess being the first craft beer brewery in the area, you guys were second, and we've had this flood of breweries after. So what challenges did you face trying to get started here that maybe the other guys didn't have to face?
I mean, it was clearly getting out to the customers, letting the bar owners and restaurant owners know and understand there is a brewery. There is a small brewery. You guys know it. The big three were the big ones, and especially Texas, one of the biggest market for them.
Sure.
We had to walk into accounts, and we had to listen to some signs. The door is right there, and and then we had to come back, and we had to be, just follow up, and and just get to it. And I think that was really a challenge at that time. And then as time went by, it switched over. Then we got phone calls, and hey, we want to try to carry your beer. Can you come down? But for the first few years, it was really just knocking on people's door and do this over and over again, and get the no. And that was really probably the biggest hurdle at that point.
And there wasn't a lot.
All those things changed today. I mean,
yeah.
Today is actually the opposite. I sometimes hear customers tell me, "Oh my God, another beer rep." Really, there's another brewery. So it changed a lot, and it got quite interesting from there.
It didn't seem like a lot of places at that time either had the mentality of like maybe a flying saucer or something. There was just a few of those places out there that wanted local.
Those places helped. I mean, they were already in place, and that's where the community started up. I mean, there's no question about it. There's no question about it.
I imagine Square Burger helped quite a bit coming in. And
Square Burger, it's actually really interesting too, because we just opened up, and I had with my head brewer, we went out to a local bar here in McKinney to introduce our beer to them. And two guys were sitting on the table, and they had lunch, and they overheard our conversation with the owner of the establishment where we went. And on the way out, they stopped us and said, "What? You guys opened a brewery in McKinney?" And I said, "Yeah, I opened a brewery a few weeks back." "Man, we're opening this burger bar in McKinney concentrating on beer. It's called Square Burger." So it was the two owners of the Square Burger.
Oh, okay.
And here we go. So, just went from there, and huge supporters, good partnership going on since, for them, 10 years now probably too. So
yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It worked out.
It's been a long time. So you mentioned this earlier, like you used to do everything in the brewery. You used to do everything. I remember like from just not only just making the beer, obviously sales, and I remember hearing stories about you. Like you would even change the tap lines to some of your customers because they didn't have the best delivery of your products. So you would change tap lines for them.
We didn't just change tap lines for we changed tap lines for a lot of people.
But do you miss that side of the job? It's got to be somewhat of a relief not have to. Driving vans.
It just switched over.
Yeah.
I definitely miss sometimes the more hands-on kind of stuff. Like I said, the way how I grew up and grew into this business, it was hands-on. And when you come home and you have a beer before you go to bed, and that feels good because you did something, or if you come the next day, if you come in and you see that beer is fermenting and there are bubbles coming out, and man, this is what I did, right? So it's a good feeling, no question, and absolutely, sometimes I miss being more hands-on, but it just shifts. Now it's more planning, organizing, managing. I'm still out in the market for sure. We, McKinney, we still self-distribute, so that stuff is still going on in McKinney, and yes, I like to go out every week and see our customers in McKinney. So they see me at least once every week, and so it's still there.
Yeah,
still doing it, but sitting a little bit more behind the desk as well.
So what led the decision of giving up the job of head brewer, and you hired somebody else to become the head brewer, and now your title is brewmaster other than founder. So what led to that decision of like making that division and giving up?
I still haven't completely given up on that brewmaster. I'm pretty sure the guys in the back sometimes like me to stay out a little bit more.
Yeah,
probably do. But it's just the way how the business established itself and how it shifted over. I think Germans are known for that they like to be a little bit over sensitive and controllable about things. So, there are some things I don't want to give up because I don't want to take a risk, and that is probably why I'm more on this side now as I was in the back side.
Yeah.
So, I trust other people maybe brewing the beer. I probably don't trust a lot of people with the numbers.
That makes sense. Do you think, had you never hired someone else to be a brewmaster or a brewer, you would ever come out with anything like the double IPA?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess it's not a secret that I'm not a big fan of IPAs. But,
right.
That doesn't mean that they don't have their place. They have a huge place in the market, absolutely. The IPA was really, we did it for our 5th anniversary first, and we just had planned to do 5 beers. They're completely out of our regular base, so the double IPA was definitely one of them. I'm really honest with it. Our double IPA doesn't sell well because we're just not known for it. And there might be people out there that probably think different, or they probably have some comments to this, but it's all good. We came out with it, and I said I'd do it once, and then we had the demand, and we did it a second time, and now we did it this year a third time, and we had supplies, so here we go. But I really think after this one, that's it.
That's unfortunate because I actually like that one quite a bit.
We definitely would have come out with it. If you look at our World Tour series we did last year, that was all completely out of the normal range we are doing. So we definitely like to step out, but I don't think it's a secret that we're pretty much based down to earth on our Puritan law. That's not a secret, and yeah, there are good parts and bad parts about it, but I think we did some interesting stuff last year with the Belgian Pale Ale and the Baltic Porter, or look at the Eisbock. Those are all beers. I think they definitely interesting to make. Sitting with it, and they probably don't get that much recognition out there,
right?
Because they are not as crazy up there like some of the other beers.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
Hey, how many people can pull off an Eisbock?
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment in and of itself. To produce a drinkable beer that is that high in ABV.
Yeah. You do it well with your triple dunkel too.
Yeah. Love the
Triple Dunkel is interesting too. I mean, that's right there. That's a beer we established. It completely. I mean, there's nothing comparable within the European market to that beer, and I think it's a great beer.
I agree.
I love that beer. I have to watch out because that'll hit you pretty quick. But
it will. You know what? I actually think the alcohol in the Triple Dunkel is much more noticeable as it actually is in the Eisbock, because the Eisbock, due to the process, it still has more sweetness in it, so the alcohol is more hidden. In the Triple Dunkel, it dries out a little bit, so you actually feel the alcohol even if it's less as the Eisbock. So
true.
Yeah, it's they're both real. I mean, for such high ABV though, I mean it's. They're both highly drinkable beers, which is just scary. Like,
and a random side note, I do hope you guys find a reason to make the oatmeal one more time, because I like that one quite a bit too.
The oatmeal, okay. We'll think about it.
So Cam is your head brewer.
He was our head brewer.
He was?
Yeah, Cam is not with us.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, Cam moved up to suburbs of Chicago 2 months ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, well, he's still on the website.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So
that's true. We got to update that.
Okay, well, who's your head brewer now?
Derek Reimer.
Okay, so how do you know, like, when you're looking for somebody, when you're looking for Cam or you were looking for his replacement, what do you look for in a head brewer, and how did you know he was right for this company?
Derek is the story about Derek is that he was actually working for us before when we started bottling. We had Derek in here, and he really impressed, and we liked what he did, and things like that. And he pretty much just helped us with the main launch of the bottle. So he was here. We needed additional help. We knew it wasn't anything long term, but at that point we would have liked to have another position open and hire him. But he just when he was a perfect fit again, and I called him up, and that's how it went down.
Yeah.
So he was familiar with us, and I knew him, what he was doing, how he was doing things, and so it was
worked out.
It was pretty easy at that point. So, but it definitely can be challenging to find good people, and it's not like in Europe where you have again with the
a lot of choices.
We have a lot of choices. So, but like I said, there's a lot going on. We're definitely moving all in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, right.
Has the bottling worked out well for you guys? Because I know originally you were you're trying to find the right situation. I recall you talking about wanting to be able to recycle the bottles and have a whole process in place. But were you able to get anywhere close to that, or did you just have to kind of...
It's I mean, straight answer, no. Yeah. It's just the way how the system, how the market is established here in the past, probably 50, 60 years. Mm-hmm. It is hard to go back, and it would be something more breweries or pretty much the beverage industry overall needs to bring a bigger pull in. We're very limited in what we can do here. Mm-hmm. To offset some of that stuff, we created some really nice environmentally aspects here at Franconia. We don't really advertise that much about it, but just our energy system we're having out here, our recycling efforts we're doing all the way back to CO2 collection. So we don't, we recover our CO2, things like that. So we went into that direction because we knew we can't really have a big impact in the market. And when you got to think about the whole supply chain would need to change, and retailers have to change. And that's it.
That's a lot for you to push on your own.
Well, for the size of business we are,
yeah.
It's just really, really tough to do.
Really
tough to do. So,
is that why I know? So I guess there's a perception that maybe in Europe that canning is inferior to bottles. So is that why? Is it one of the reasons why you haven't gotten into canning, or is there more reasons to why you haven't gotten into canning also? Because canning has obviously become...
You like to push my buttons.
Oh, well, I know it's become a high, especially, here in Texas, canning has become a big thing.
Yeah,
just because
it did.
cold weather and all that.
It did, and, I may have a little bit of different approach to that as well. But to make it really short and maybe even to get around a little bit of that question, let's put it that way. I grew up on a bottle and not on a can. So even the milk I got was probably in a bottle, not in a can. So
right.
That's probably the best way to put it. Cans definitely got established in the market and have a big forward push. But like I said, it's a conversation that would take a long time. And, I think there are different reasons why a lot of breweries go into canning. We still decided for the bottle, and it's working out for us.
And it's its own investment, I guess. Once you get to canning, it's a whole other pile of money you got to throw in to get it done, right?
Yeah, it's a different pile of money for sure. Bottling for sure is still more expensive as canning. Yeah. So I think that's another indicator, or a lot of questions raised here. Yeah. Why do we still went with bottles instead of cans? Bottling is way more expensive as canning is. Surprisingly, the prices in the market on cans are the same, if not even higher, as bottles. Let's just leave it right there.
I'm glad you didn't go with green bottles, though.
No.
Yes, no Stella bottles.
We wouldn't do that.
So I want to go back to when you first came to America. What was your perception of the U.S. beer market at the time? Because obviously it's not. Then, of course, it wasn't as good as it is now. But what was your perception coming over from such a rich beer country, coming to the United States, and then conversely, like, how do you view it now? Like how things have changed?
If you're playing in the way, what was my first perception of it, or I have to say, due to the fact that when I came over here to the States the first time, I looked at different breweries up north, and so I was actually introduced. My first beers were introduced more on the craft beer side at that point, and people do not believe me, but it's really true. Up till today, I never had a beer from the big threes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, people always say, no, that's not possible. But no, it's true. It just haven't happened. And when I came here and looked for breweries, I applied at the small ones, you know. So the first picture was actually not bad at all. Yeah. Coming down to Texas was a little bit different because there was literally nothing going on. But here, big shout out to Chip from Live Oak. Met Chip from Live Oak years back. I had a friend who actually, why do I don't say the names? I can say the names. James Hudek, who is now with Alamo down in San Antonio. So I knew him back from Germany. He worked under me back in Germany as a trainee, and I know him a long time. And when we came down here to Texas, I met up with James, and so he introduced me to Chip from Live Oak. And we don't need to talk about Live Oak. I mean, they're doing great jobs, you know. And then he took me down to Real Ale and Real Blanco when Real Ale was still on the square. We're brewing out of the back garage right before they did the move. So those were the first Texas beer I had, and we don't need to talk about what those guys are doing today and how great the beers are. So overall, it was good. There was just nothing around here.
Yeah. I guess Austin had a little bit going on, but
yeah, absolutely,
definitely not here.
Absolutely, if you look at that area, I mean, I think Austin at that time, and they had at least probably 10 breweries at that time.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then a lot of stuff happened afterwards. Right after we opened, 512 opened up. Yep,
I knew that was close. Yeah.
That was they were probably 2 or 3 months after us. And that all. This is literally where the beginning was. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and with me working for the brew pub, I think we put beer out we enjoyed. So I never had to go to any other pub.
Yeah, that's nice.
So I'm curious then. Obviously, it's blossomed since you guys started. So I'm assuming you've been back to visit family since you started, and I'm curious of how your family, what they think about your beer, and do you think that the U.S. market is now pushing European brewers to be better?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. There's no question about it. Okay, I'm going back once a year visiting family, and for sure, make my rounds through the breweries and the friends where I'm having. And yeah, I mean the U.S. craft beer market definitely has an impact on the Europeans too. There's a lot going on, and I mean breweries like Stone, they move production over there, and so that is all well received over there. A lot of the really traditional brewers even start, getting into and coming out with limited releases, and you see IPAs coming up, and you see dry hopping coming up, which was never even a subject before. A really good example is a brewery back in Germany I worked for quite a while before I moved over here. Smaller brew pub, and they're getting into it now. Really, they're coming up with limited releases and barrel aging and things like that. So it definitely has an impact, and it's really really nice to see that they're a little bit more open to it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's some changes. I gave my mom once before. I brought an IPA, and she drank it. Unfortunately, she couldn't finish it. So. But that's probably not a very good indicator.
So do you think Stone opening over there, and do you think that maybe pushes some of the limits just in general, and maybe makes the purity law not as hard and fast as it was at one point in Germany?
Well, I think it's really more the older generation brewers. I mean, just if you just look at the schools, at the universities, and they train the brewers, or where you get your knowledge. They're even definitely getting into it. If you look at it, the Seibel Institute in Chicago, which is assisted out with Dömens in Munich. So there's a lot of communication going on, and a lot of programs where they do exchanges between the States and Germany, and I think there's some interesting stuff happening here. It's really great. Now you think, okay, mostly what we are doing is German, and we are sticking to the German Puritan law, 99% of it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that I'm not open, or that we are not open to anything else. Like I said, we did stuff before. It's just I look at it more like as a challenge. Mm-hmm. To stick to the Puritan law. Mm-hmm. Creating beers with the Puritan law, they're interesting, and they have different aromas and different flavors. So that's I think what's more a drive for me. It's more that personal challenging deal behind it. But it's very interesting to see what's going on over there too. So.
Is it still the case that unless it follows the purity law, that it can't be called beer? It has to be called whatever the equivalent. I don't remember what the term is, but like we call malt liquor here is not beer. It can't be called beer legally. It's got to be called something else.
Yeah, well, the Puritan law over there went through a few changes in the past 15, 20 years probably. So at first it was just the talk that getting rid of the Puritan law at all. That was mostly driven from breweries they had planned to come into Germany, because a lot of the breweries from outside do not brew to the Puritan law. So the Puritan law got lifted to that point that the law was still in place for the German brewers, but it was allowed to sell beer in Germany that was not brewed to the Puritan law. So that started that whole process. And so then it went over, okay, now we want to do something, the German brewers want to do something, but we got the Puritan law. So then they said, okay, you can do it, but you can't call it beer. You have to just call it a beverage or malt beverage, right, if you would translate it like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some interesting things out there the Germans do, especially mixing beers. So, but it was never really allowed for the brewers to mix it. It mm-hmm. had to be mixed at the bar. I mean, take a Berliner Weiss, mm-hmm. right?
We have the red and green.
So exactly, red and green. And the Berliner Weiss is pretty much a really good example for it. So the breweries was not able to, or allowed by law, to mix those fruit syrups in the beer. So it was done on the bar side. So now we're in a totally different stage because the Puritan law itself pretty much got lifted. So you don't have to brew to the Puritan law anymore. But most breweries still take a lot of pride in it. And it is definitely a seal of quality.
Yeah.
That's how the Europeans look at it. So a lot of people still take a lot of pride in it, which doesn't mean that they start up with a different section in the brewery or a different product line where they, get more experimental, like I said, with IPAs or even barrel aging or things like that. So
Makes sense.
It's
part of the national identity. I mean, it's
Yeah, sure.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and so it's very enjoyable. And if you go over and go into a grocery store in Germany now, 3-4 years back, you just saw the regular stuff. And now if you go in, you see a lot of American beers, craft beers popping up. Some local breweries over there, they have their chocolate series, or,
Right.
whatever it is. So it's interesting to see. I don't think it will take over like it does here. We Germans are pretty sturdy now, the way we think,
Sure.
So, but it's definitely interesting going in a beer store in Germany compared to a beer store here. So, every time I go over there, I make pictures of what a beer store looks in Germany, and I always plan to post it on Facebook. And then every time I'm about to hit that enter button, I can't do that.
what's the difference? What's the difference?
If you go in a beer store over there, you just see so many different beers and so many different brands. And we don't sell in 6-packs. We sell in cases, right? So if you look at that, it's literally overwhelming. If you go into a beer store in Germany, a traditional beer store where you buy on a weekly base a case of beer, you easily find 600-700 different brands of beer. And
Wow.
it's all. So I'm sometimes a little bit hesitated to post this stuff because you walk through an aisle and you have a beer cooler and you got a few variations in there and it's all good, but just the
80% Budweiser.
just the pure amount of volume of beer in one
Right.
place is can be quite scary.
What limits do you find yourself if you're playing within the purity law? What maybe flavor limits do you find yourself limited to that you wish you could break through, but maybe you're running up against these barriers that this law provides you? Like if you're trying to stay within the purity law, what limits do you hit?
Well, I don't like to look at it as limits. That's what I meant earlier.
Yeah.
It's challenging, but it's not a limit. I like to challenge myself.
Okay, challenges then. What challenges do you find?
It's not really a limit. I think what the challenge is here, or let's call it a limit. I think. If we create flavors in a beer, they're not punching you in the face aromas and flavors. So if you brew a beer and you put whatever in it, that's you get a flavor bomb, right? So if you try to create this through blends and hops and fermentation and things like that, those flavors won't be as strong as, if you have a beer and you put lemon zest and cinnamon or pumpkin in it, right? You have the pumpkin punches you in the face, that flavor is right there.
Right.
Yep. So I think that's a limit. We can probably create flavors like this or get close to it, but it won't be a punch you in your face kind of deal, right? So I think that's to establish that's probably a limit if you want to call it that way. So
Balance is a limit.
balance is a limit, exactly, and that might be a good or a bad thing. There's some good beers out there. They have some flavors of fruit and stuff in it, and they're well balanced. But you also have some they're like, whoa,
Then you have Dogfish that does pieces of surfboard and lobsters. And
Yeah, I mean, it's, you can overdo it. So, like I said, it's a challenge with limits. I think that makes.
I guess it depends on your brewing philosophy. Like Michael Petticolis, his brewing philosophy is balance, is to create well balanced beers, and there's something very right about that. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with producing a beer that doesn't punch you in the face.
Right. Absolutely.
We hear it sometimes that people say Franconia beers are boring because we brew to the German Puritan law. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's an opinion, and it's fine. But I really think you got to look more deeper into it, what actually goes into to create what we are creating. Mm-hmm. And now going away from the sessionable beers, but really talk about beers like a Triple Dunkel, talk about the beer like an Eisbock or our Baltic Porter we do, things like that. I mean, it's challenging to do that without anything else, and I like it.
There's nothing wrong with a good, solid German wheat either. So,
I agree, but it's hard to compete with wheat beers. They have coriander and cinnamon and orange peel, and it's hard to compete against that because if I take our wheat and I would throw those aromas or fruit in it, it probably would look totally different. But to create a nice wheat with a nice typical banana orange, a little bit loaf, you can do it this way, or you can do it that way.
Right.
I get it.
But conversely, I would say, like Franconia, one of the great things about having a well-balanced beer is that if you're going to try to convert somebody from Coors Miller and Bud and all those, that having a well-balanced beer is more of a lure, I think, for those drinkers than it is trying to get them into start them with a double IPA.
And let's be honest, isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what got us where we are today in the industry? You're not converting a Bud Miller Coors drinker with a double IPA or with a flavor enhanced. No, you don't do that because they would turn around, they look at it and say, well, there's a reason why I don't like those beers, right? So they gotta find their flavor and they gotta adjust themselves to it, and it obviously is working. It obviously is working. So
true.
And if you look at it too, I mean, when we opened up and our beer lineup, our core brands or core flavors we make, blonde or a culture, everybody talked about those beers and we rather have. Well, look at it. What is today? If you go through the breweries, that's what their core brands are. Mm-hmm. At first we got a grief about it. Well, why is he brewing a Kolsch beer? Why is he brewing? Well, look at it. Those are the core brands we have out there now from the major breweries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what people go for.
Well, even a lot of craft beers are brewing lagers too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what do you? There is kind of a trend of going back towards, like, we had this big explosion of high ABV beers here in the States, and now Europe especially is going back towards the more sessionable beers. There's a big trend there, and we're starting to see that pick up here.
We have to, and you know why? I had a very interesting conversation with somebody here just a few weeks back, and he was actually upset that he didn't have his recording going. So, Brian, I'm sorry, I'm using it somewhere else. If this wouldn't happen, I think we would turn more people back to the big three beers. Mm-hmm. If the market would stick to that extreme, people would turn back because you don't want to drink 8-10% beer all day. Yes, some people do, but
right.
The majority, the biggest beer market is there, and if we as a craft brewer do not supply that market, people will turn back to the big three. Mm-hmm.
Even talking to who was it from Founders we interviewed?
Dave Engbers?
Yeah, Dave Engbers, talking about the fact that they brewed the all-day IPA because we said he likes to drink beer all day. And, if you're going to drink 9 or 10%, you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're going to be drinking while you're working at the brewery.
Yes.
You need something a little lower ABV.
Right, exactly.
We would never do that.
Never, ever. Yeah, safety's first, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Safety is paramount. So what do you think, and this, as far as I know, this is our last question until we get to the short questions, the lightning round. What do you think the European brewers can learn from us in the United States and vice versa? What could we learn from the European brewers that we're not doing?
be open-minded and start challenging yourself. I mean, that is literally what I'm doing. I mean, coming from the German history and the German tradition, coming into this market and the way how the market established, it is challenging, but it's healthy, and I think it's good. It's competitive, and that's what we want, and that's what I think should happen or is going to happen over there too. Just be open-minded and challenge yourself, and it will be good.
I was going to ask one thing earlier, related to your question about the beer store in Germany. Why do you think we have such a poor representation of European beer here? Because if I go to Total Wine and I look at one side of the aisle, it's all obviously United States craft beers. You go to the other side, and I feel like the majority of European beers outside of BrewDog and a couple others, European beers are very poorly represented here. Why do you think that is?
It's the size of the brewery and the availability of the raw materials. I mean, with the density of breweries over there, it is a very local market. I like to compare that even to the wine. You don't see a lot of German wines in the U.S. either, for that simple reason that Germans produce what they need in their own country. Maybe a little bit, or the bigger ones go into export, but the smaller ones just don't. I mean, the big ones you see here. I mean, you know, we're talking about Spaten, we're talking about Hofbrauhaus, we're talking about Belton's, Warsteiner. I mean, you name them. Those are all the big guns, like we have here. So you see those. The smaller ones, you sometimes see a little bit, but it's not really a market where they would have the capacity for it. The raw materials wouldn't be there. The ingredients. All those brewers in Germany really use their raw material that is grown in Germany, so they're limited there. Then you got to look at it too on the investment side. If you want to take a step like this, all those breweries are hundreds of years old. The space is limited, right? So most of them are at capacity and they're happy where they are. It's not always hey, we need to get our beer here, we need to get our beer there. It's, they're happy in what they're doing, and they really want to keep the quality where it is. To make your beer ship overseas, and I mean,
it's a big investment.
It's a big investment to get to that point, and I really think that's one of the main reasons. It is nice to see some variety packs show up sometimes during holiday season from some smaller places over there, but I think that's the main reason. It's just the resources on the raw material and the way how those businesses are run. I mean, it's just different like here.
Yeah. I would say that's almost, I mean, I don't want to say it is an endemic problem, but I think it's a problem. Like here in the United States, you're seeing so many craft brewers get way too big, way too fast, acquire way too much debt because they're trying to expand too fast.
I also think it has something to do with how competitive you want to be.
Sure.
The market here is very competitive. And in Germany, even with the amount of breweries we have, it's not as competitive. If you go to a bar, you drink the beer they have. People don't judge over it. People don't rate over it. We're talking about beer culture. I think that was in your question too. I think we need to really explain what do we see as a beer culture. I think European beer culture is totally different as the beer culture we have over here, and I think that's a big part too. It's just how competitive it is and how different the culture pretty much develops.
Right.
So they don't have a lot of whaling over there like they do here.
Like I said, people go to a bar in the restaurant and they order the beer they have on draft, and they have a good time, and they have one or two beers, and they sit with their friends, and they have what we call a Stammtisch, where people go every evening and they have a beer with their friends after work, and they go home and they had a good time. Man, here it's like, oh man, I had this beer. No, I didn't like this. And trying to smell that doesn't exist in that way, and but now we're going back to being open-minded, challenge yourself. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, but I think it has a lot to do with that why you don't see that many of those beers here.
Well, as we're drinking your Oktoberfest here, I assume you've been to Oktoberfest in Germany.
I don't remember.
I was going to ask you, what's it like for somebody who hasn't been there? But never mind.
Now, Oktoberfest is, I mean, if you have the chance in your life to go to the Oktoberfest, it's definitely should be on your bucket list. Mm-hmm. Growing up that close to the Oktoberfest and lived in Munich for a few years while going to the UT, and coming out of a brewer's family by side of Oktoberfest, having dealt with beer festivals my whole life in those extents. Beer festivals are over there different too as beer festivals we know here.
Mm-hmm. True.
So it's a great time. It's literally something you should do if you have the chance in your life.
It seems
I don't
overwhelming
have to go back.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just looking at pictures, it seems like wow. It's like it seems overwhelming.
It literally is overwhelming. I mean, you got to look at it this way: the Oktoberfest goes for 2 weeks, 3 weekends, 2 weeks, and they're serving in those few days as much beer as all Texas breweries together produce in a year.
Wow,
that's what they're consuming there.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's just,
yeah,
it is unbelievable. Like I said, if you can be part of it once in your life, do it. I rather go to smaller beer festivals, more the local beer festivals.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have to go to the original anymore.
Yeah, I think I aim to get there someday. Maybe. Yeah.
Like I said, you definitely should do it.
I'd like to try it once too.
Yeah,
definitely should do it.
Yeah, I think my wife just looked at pictures of it. And she was like, she already has like she get like big crowds like that. She gets a little bit anxious, and she just like them. She's like, I don't know if I could do that.
I was going to say, I think you and I would have to do that. I don't think either one of our wives would want to go.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to our lightning round questions. Awesome. So I think you already answered this, but what was your first beer? Was your family brewery's beer?
No, it actually was not.
Okay.
My first beer, if I can trust what I was told, was actually a Spartan Helles.
Okay.
So,
how old were you at the time?
Too young to recall it?
Oh, I don't know.
Old enough to grab something off the table?
There actually exists a picture. Like I said, I don't know how old I was. I would need to ask my parents, but there was a family outing in a restaurant in Germany, and there's a picture where me as a little kid sitting on the table. I even think I wear diapers if I remember that right. I will find that picture, and I'm holding a beer stein, and it has Spartan Helles in it, and I'm drinking out of that beer. So that is known for me as the first beer I had. So
that's a different experience growing up in Germany than in the U.S. That would not.
It definitely is. Yes, it definitely is.
Yes. So what do you think your first craft beer was? I know you rebel somewhat against the name craft, but I mean from what I've read. But what do you think your first craft beer was?
Okay, considering this now here in the States, the first craft beer here, or what do you consider? Because if you look at it this way, I think I would still call the majority of the beers in Germany craft beers.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I mean, sure.
if you go through the size, but I mean that was probably definitely family business wise. I mean, yeah, there's no doubt about it.
So outside of Franconia, do you have a particular favorite brewery that you go to?
Does it has to be local? Or
No, it does not have to be.
Yes, I do. There are actually a few of them. There's a brewery in Germany. It's called Gutmann, and all they do is Hefeweizens, and they make an outstanding Gutmann Hefeweizen. So if you ever have the chance to go to the southern part of Germany or the Franconian region, make sure you find a Gutmann Hefeweizen. Really, really good one. And then, I mean, there's a lot of small breweries. We got a brewery in a little town called Leinburg. They make really, really great beer. So definitely like to go back to those roots every time I go back. So those are probably some of my favorites. If you go local, I mean, don't want to be unfair, but like I said earlier, I definitely appreciate and like everything Chip is doing from Live Oak. Shout out to Michael. If I go somewhere and they don't carry Franconia, my second run is probably going to pretty color, so no doubt about it. So yeah.
So if you could put one thought into every beer drinker's head, what would it be?
When I leave my brewery in the evening, I like to talk about different stuff too. I don't necessarily have to talk about beer.
Somewhat ironic being on this show.
That's funny.
So is brewing more art or science?
I got a straight up answer for that. It's 80% science and it's 20% art. So it's an art. The 20% art is how you work with the science.
That's a good answer.
But I think 80% is science and 20% is art. And I think there is a reason why if you really go through brewing school and, get the brewmaster title, you will understand why it's more science as art.
I think that might be the best answer we've had yet.
Yeah.
To that question.
And do you trend more just in general to ales or lagers, or is it just the mood you're in that day?
Man, it's not necessarily a mood, and I don't really like to make that big of a difference because I know a lot of people really say they like lager batters or they like ale batters. I think we can put lager or ale beers in front of a lot of people. They think they can make a difference, but if you let them try it and they don't know what it is, they can't really make the difference. Now, if you make a difference between a wheat beer or something like that, then I'm a big wheat beer fan. So in that matter, yes, I like ales, but I like a lot. I mean, I drink a lot of lagers too. So, but if you go down to the basics between lager or ale, I think there are a lot of lager and ales out there. You can put in. You can drink and you couldn't really make a difference, or you couldn't tell, okay, this is for sure a lager or this is for sure an ale. I think that's very difficult to do. And so I like both equally.
Gotcha.
I probably had some beers I thought it's a lager and it really was an ale, or the opposite way. So.
It's going to be promising with the new yeast strains for lager that they're working on.
That's what makes it difficult. That's why it makes it really difficult.
Because 2 yeast strains traditionally, and then they finally found some more.
That's it. Well, and if you look at the traditional ale yeast strains, now we're talking about the Hefeweizen strains, we're talking about the Kölsch strains, or the typical American ale strains. Yes, you can definitely tell a difference there, but with the yeast variations we have today and they're coming out, it's getting more and more difficult. I mean, we're talking about hybrids, right? It's getting more and more difficult, and like I said, if you got lager yeast strains, they're so detailed out today that you can pretty much brew a lager beer within a matter of a few days.
Oh wow!
How do you make a difference again?
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's getting more difficult. So 20 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been to that point, but today it's getting more difficult.
So anything you got coming up you wanna talk about, or?
Man, we actually got a lot coming up, and I don't want to talk about it.
All right, well, fair enough.
We'll just wait to see it then.
I mean, we're on the Oktoberfest season right now, so that's our season to shine. Our Oktoberfest is by far our best-selling seasonal beer. Will be followed definitely by the Fallenbach again. We changed the Fallenbach up this year a little bit. Most of our seasonal beers, due to the tradition again, and here we're probably talking now about what how we are open to. Most of our seasonal beers are more on the sweeter side. I mean, if you take a Maybach, it's more on the maltier side. Our Oktoberfest is on the maltier side. Our Fallenbach was on the maltier side, so we changed the Fallenbach up a little bit this year. We actually added more hops. We definitely increased the hop bill on the Fallenbach to offset it a little bit. So Fallenbach is coming out. We decided to do the Baltic Porter as the winter seasonal again. So for years we had the winter wheat. First year, we switched that over to the Baltic Porter, and it was very well received in the market, so we are sticking to that. And, well, we have our 10-year anniversary coming up, so there's more stuff to come, but we gotta...
It's all in secret.
It's all in secret. I will release one secret, which is not really a secret because Bobby already is mentioning that everywhere. I think we will have a lot of different variations, maybe 10 different ice box this year for our 10-year anniversary.
Oh, wow. Are you guys having a big party for your 10-year?
We soon Oktoberfest season is over. We will start planning 10-year anniversary party. Wow. I mean, there's definitely something happening.
Excellent.
Well, congratulations on 10 years, and here's to another 10, another 15, another 20.
Let's hope for it.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Dennis.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thanks for listening to episode 116 of Brew Bloods. Thanks a lot to Dennis Wehrmann. He gave us a very long interview. I wish we could have included some of the. We had a really great conversation after, and unfortunately, we were not recording that.
That was the longest post-game discussion we've ever had.
It was.
And
but
it was pretty awesome.
Dennis was very welcoming and gave us a lot of great information after the fact. It was cool to talk to him, a guy that's been in the scene for a long time, and very appreciative that he's around to keep these. Some non-extreme styles around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep the old school beer game alive in the area. And one thing I didn't think about to ask him about was, being a German immigrant and, being in Texas, we have a strong, much like a lot of the Midwest, north of us, we have a strong German influence in Texas. And I kind of wonder, I forgot to ask, how much did that play in his, decision of making beer of that style, or was it all on his heritage?
Yeah. Take a look at Shiner,
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, the German influence and then the Czech influence as well,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We have a tremendous European immigrant history here in Texas. So
that's a little Texas fun fact for all of you guys that don't live in Texas.
Texas fun fact.
If you didn't enjoy those fun facts we gave about infrastructure around Lake Highlands, hopefully you enjoyed that one.
Hopefully you enjoyed our generic immigrant facts.
We'll have more each week for you. Well, actually, that'll be another shorty, generic immigrant fact podcast.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks for listening to the show. We appreciate your support. If you're not subscribed to the show, you can do that for free. It costs you $0. Just go to brewbloods.net. There's links to all that.
Why have I been paying $50 a month for this?
Yeah. If we set up a Patreon, maybe you guys can shoot us some shekels, but we don't have that right now. If you have any podcast app like the built-in one into iOS, I don't know if there's one for Android, or if you have any other podcast app, you could probably find us in there. It doesn't cost you a penny. You can subscribe to us, and you'll get us every single week if you enjoy our content.
Or every time I release an episode, which is almost every week. We're pretty close.
Almost every week, yeah. If you enjoy the show, you might enjoy our other occasional podcast called The Break Room. You can find that at breakroom.tv. Same thing. The link's there to find the show. And if you don't mind, if you have a minute, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'd appreciate that. It helps other people find our little beer show. Check us out on the social networks, Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you have any feedback on the show, you can call us at 469-573-BEER. That's 469-573-2337. We should say we may not be around next week. We're both going on vacation, and so we may not have an episode next week.
Once.
Not together for once. Yeah, it's the first time in a while. But we should have an episode after that, the week after that. But yeah, don't expect anything from us next week. Dustin's going to Vegas. I'm going to California. And then I'm going to go get my butt kicked in the wilds of Houston, Texas. So physically kicked. Yeah.
And that's just a special thing that he likes to do. It's no specific purpose that we can talk about, at least on this clean show. Maybe you can hear about that in the break room, all his escapades down in Houston.
That's right. It's a secret government mission to get my ass kicked.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch you guys next week, or we'll catch you guys some other time for the next episode.
We'll catch you down the road shortly.
Yeah. We'll catch you guys down the road for the next episode of Brew Bloods. For Dustin, I'm Mark.
For Mark, I'm Dustin. Prost.
Prost.